I want to start today by saying something plainly, but I think it's something that you're ready to hear. Patriarchy didn't just harm women, it broke men. Guys, it broke love. And if we don't do something to intentionally shift that dynamic, it's going to continue to do so. So today, I want to talk about what becomes possible when power is healed, when strength no longer costs us connection, when we get to create a new polarity of integrated whole human masculinity and femininity. This episode is about the future that becomes possible. It becomes a great global healing through wholeness and through love. If all of the other episodes in this relationship revolution conversation were about awareness or activation, this episode is about future and our possibilities. Welcome, my friends, to another catalyst conversation in the relationship revolution, where here we disrupt the scripts and the rules and the old stories that no longer work about love, about power, about partnership, and we activate and clarify new ways of leading our relationships consciously, courageously, differently, dare I say, better. Because the truth is, the way that we've been taught to do love is not working, hasn't been working for a while. And it is time for a better way. So this month, we have been talking about this relationship revolution that I am leading. That's been the topic of January 2026's theme. And whenever you're watching this, I promise you it is still relevant. So quick review, because this is really important. The relationship revolution is a fundamental paradigm shift in how we love, how we relate, how we lead ourselves in our relationships. And remember, everything is relationships. But in the relationship revolution that I am talking about, that I'm leading here with all of you, we start at the most intimate level, at our intimate partner relationships, our marriages, our relationships at home. And with the recognition that if we can learn how to lead those, if we can learn how to love here, where it is often the most challenging, those skills, that love, that leadership, that relationality is going to ripple outward and change the world. Relationships are not just personal, my friends. They are cultural. They shape who we become, what we build together, what we teach our children, the legacies that we lead. So it felt really important to me this month in particular to start this new chapter of our year by looking at how we can dismantle old systems and consciously build something new in their place. That's what the revolution is about. So each week so far in January, we've been naming the patterns that keep repeating in our relationships, shifts that are required to revolutionize them and redefine what it means to love. And in so doing, heal the fucking world. It's a big mission, I know, and we are here still doing it. So week 1, so there's 5 shifts in the revolution, okay? And by the way, if you missed any of these episodes, comment revolution and I will get you links to the episodes that you missed. Or if you want to be specific, just you could say revolution episode 1 and I'll know. So here's what we did in episode 1. We talked about the shift from me versus you to us, from individualism to relationality. And in week 2, we let go of blame and finger pointed and shifted into relational leadership. And I introduced the concept of empowered accountability, which is a core concept in everything that we teach. In week 3, we redefined our paradigm of love and relationships. We shifted from comfort to growth, and we took a look at what it really means to love, because truthfully, most people are getting this wrong. And then last week, shift 4, we got clear on what it really takes to change our relationships. Like, what does this look like in practice? So we shifted from this autopilot into conscious response. That's the shift. So today, week 5, shift 5, the final shift, we turn toward what comes next in this revolution. I call this a future casting episode, right? This is a conversation about where we're going in our relationships. And let me tell you, it's a beautiful place. Before we get into it, I want to take a moment to do 2 things. First, I want to talk about why today's conversation is so important. And then I want to introduce myself. And then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. Okay. So this conversation, this matters because patriarchy didn't just shape our laws or institutions, right? There's a political patriarchy that most of us think about when we think about patriarchy. But what I'm talking about here is a psychological patriarchy. It is a personal patriarchy. It is the way that patriarchy shapes who we are and how we do relationships across the board. Okay? Patriarchy shaped how power and identity live in our most intimate places. And one of the, some of the things that are a consequence of patriarchy have been that, like, we have learned, explicitly or not, that power hurts, that power can be harmful. We've learned that being strong means being distant, disconnected, stoic, right? We've learned that when one person takes up space, it means that someone else has to give space up. That if one person leads, the other must follow. We've moved into this binary. And another big part of that, of course, is that masculine qualities such as independence, decisiveness, leadership, stoicism, strength, these are ideal. But feminine qualities like interconnectedness, vulnerability, caretaking, softness, emotionality are, on a nice day, less than ideal. In other circumstances, bad, held in contempt, to be avoided. Okay? And then we wonder why intimacy feels so hard and so unsafe. Why desire disappears in our relationships. Why connection can feel so hard. And relationships start to feel like a power struggle instead of a place to rest. Everything relational falls in femininity. Interesting, right? This dichotomy is not how relationships are meant to work. And clearly they don't work in this paradigm, not as we have been evolving, certainly, and women have been coming into greater power. Men or the masculine have been learning about the importance of their own emotional literacy or connection to warmth and compassion. But what happens so often is that um, in trying to rebalance, I see a lot of men kind of moving into femininity, right? Like they go from one end of the spectrum to the other. They lose the beautiful polarity of their masculinity and their masculine energy, and what we like, the value that brings. Similarly, women who want to move into power move into masculine energy. And of course, I'm using very gendered language, by the way, little disclaimer. You can be masculine or feminine regardless of what your assigned sex at birth was, what your gender identity is, what your lived experience has been, right? Like you get to decide. So I'm talking in the masculine feminine binary. I'm using men and women for ease and honestly because it's programmed. But I want to acknowledge these ideas, these dynamics don't just apply to cisgender men and cisgender women. Like they apply to us as queer folks and gender queer folks like myself and trans folks like Calvin and lesbian couples and gay couples. I mean, we do not escape patriarchy, and I'll share a little bit more about that in later on in this episode. But we've been living inside this system so long. We're so entrenched in this way of relating, this binary halved black and white either or way, that most people can't imagine another way, right? So the only other way that they can imagine is to just go to the other end, right? Because we can either be in masculine energy or be in feminine energy, and feminine energy looks like this and masculine energy looks like this. But that is not the solution. That actually perpetuates the problem. It creates different ones. And so today I want to talk a little bit more about what a different way, a new and a better way can look like. And having that vision, doing this future casting, my friends, this is how we create the future. Because we can't go to something, we can't create something if we have no freaking idea what it looks like, or what it could feel like, or how to do it. So everything in our life, right, starts with this vision. So before I jump in any further, let me take a minute to introduce myself, especially for those of you who are new to me or to this work that I'm doing. My name is Dr. Jenny Wallig. I am a relationship mentor, educator, speaker, author, intuitive guide, and co-founder of Powerful Love Relationships. I call myself the relationship revolutionary because I am both a disruptor and a creator. I believe deeply that our world desperately needs a new way of doing love and relationships. In fact, I believe that most of the suffering in our world comes from relationships that aren't working. And I have come to understand that God, Source, the universe, has assigned me to be a leader in the movement that supports change in this relationship revolution. You know, nothing, truly nothing impacts the quality of our lives like our ability to lead our relationships skillfully. And again, everything is relationships. Relationships are not, relationship skills are not nice to have skills. They are need to have skills. Relationship skills are our success skills, but no one teaches us how to learn them. So I am on a mission to change that, to revolutionize relationships by teaching empowered accountability, relational intelligence, relational leadership, and conscious love, especially to the women in the world who are done carrying it all alone and are ready for something different. Because let's be real, most of the time it is we women who are or the feminine energies who are like pushing for relational change. And so I speak a lot to women like myself and a lot of the women that I work with, and hopefully their partners are on board with them. And if not, it's okay, because we can lead the change. And in these catalyst conversations, my goal isn't just to give you insight or awareness. It is to wake something up within you so that you can lead the change, so that you may be part of the revolution too. If you're feeling like you're with me on this and you want to help us activate and accelerate this global movement, please make sure that you do me a favor and comment on this video or on these posts. Like, heart, subscribe to our channel on YouTube where all these videos live, share about our work, attend our events, and of course, keep doing your part to continue leading with love. If you're looking for support for yourself, please reach out. There are numerous ways that we can support you and your relationship. I'll talk about two of them at the end of this episode: our Relationship Revolution community and my new upcoming relationship in relational leadership initiation experience. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's going to be really powerful, and I want you to know about it. Either way, I am glad that you are here, my friend. Thank you for being a part of the relationship revolution already. So, you ready to get into what this can actually look like? Let's do it. So, here's the shift that we're making in this fifth shift of the relationship revolution. We are moving from fragmentation, from like this halving of humanity into masculine and feminine, into wholeness, into integration. We're moving out of patriarchy and into whole humanity, while still keeping our polarity. And what I mean polarity is like acknowledging the feminine energy over here and the masculine energy over here, but doing that without patriarchy, which is, I don't know, I think it's pretty fucking revolutionary, which is why I'm talking about it. So, when we think about patriarchy, and okay, let me pause and back up. Quick little overview on patriarchy, and this comes from the work of Terry Real. He talks about psychological patriarchy as happening in like three consecutive rings. The outer ring is the halving of our wholeness, like cutting in half into the masculine and the feminine. And we all know which one is which and what falls in each bucket, and which we identify with more. And I mean, we're all very well aware of this game. The second ring, he calls the dance of contempt. And this is where, in addition to knowing what these two halves are in the binary, we have assigned meaning to one over the other and power to one over the other, where masculinity and masculine qualities are exalted and held in high regard and given a lot of power, and feminine qualities are held often in contempt and diminished and undervalued in our society, in our culture. And then the third ring of psychological patriarchy, especially as it plays out in our relationships, is that those on the who embody the feminine have incentive to protect the masculine, even if the masculine and the qualities of the masculine are hurting the feminine. And the reason that we do that is because if we speak truth to power, if we challenge the masculine, we're likely to get like backlash, defensiveness, anger, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like outbursts, right? Like the power and the patriarchy don't like being challenged. Or we're going to get shut down, withdrawal, abandonment, right? Like, and we see this a lot in cisgender relationships. Men will tend to get defensive and lash out, or they will shut down and withdraw. And so we don't want that. We want partnership, we want connection, we want intimacy. And so in order to keep the intimacy and prevent the withdrawal, the shutdown, or the lashing out, we don't challenge this power dynamic. The third thing that can happen is that the masculine sinks down into shame. There's actually a lot of shame connected with in patriarchy. And this system, like I said, it broke men too. It is harming our men. I do not want this for my sons any more than I want this for my daughters. So please understand, there's no man hating here. This is compassion and love for the masculine, because the masculine has been cut in halved too, and we need to find our way back to one another. So patriarchy didn't just create this inequality between us. It created a fragmentation between us and within us. It split strength from softness, and the idea of like leadership, being a leader, from being in attuned connection. It separated protection from tenderness. Let me just pause here. Consider, like, as we imagine this new world, this new way of being, these new relationships, can strength also be soft? How good would that feel? Can leadership be connected and attuned? How fucking life-changing would that be? Can protection and feeling protected also embody tenderness? Damn straight it can. And I bet if you're anything like me and a lot of the women that I talk to, these are exactly the things that we desire from our men, from our partners, from our partnerships. And it is the thing that I think a lot of men recognize that they desire to embody, though they don't necessarily know how. And that um, that we women of power learn how to keep our femininity and our softness and our connections rather than like move too far into masculine energy. Like we want to be able to stay feminine. I hear that all the time, right? Like as business women, as entrepreneurs, like we actually spend quite a bit of time in masculine energy. And if you're in like corporate spaces in leadership or in highly masculinized fields, you've probably taken on and like had to, in order to survive and succeed, embody a lot of masculine traits, for better or worse. But that does not negate us from embodying also the feminine. And when we come home from spaces where we may need to be more masculine, we want to be able to step back into the feminine and be held by the masculine, but not the kind of hierarchical masculine feminine that patriarchy puts in front of us. Is this starting to make sense? Please comment if this is resonating, right? Like let me know that you are with me, that you're getting this, that you can kind of start to see what this vision looks like, because it is, even for me, still coming into form. Like I have these ideas, I have this sense, I have examples for myself in my own life and from the work that I do that showcase what this can be. And yet I recognize I am also so steeped in this, so programmed, that I don't always know the nuance of its application. So we are a little bit figuring this out together, but being a leader doesn't mean that you've got it all figured out, guys. It means that you go first. So here I am. Some other thoughts about patriarchy before I talk more about what this looks like. In patriarchy, power flows in one direction. Okay, it's not shared, which is another thing I think that like relationships in this revolution really benefit from is shared power, right? So, but in the patriarchal paradigm, someone leads, someone follows, someone's in charge, the other one is not, right? When one person speaks, the other stays quiet. When one person takes up space, the other person shrinks. When someone holds power, the other adapts, right? And so when we asked human beings to love each other inside this system, inside this fracturing, these fragmentations, it didn't work. It doesn't work. Right? And so it's no wonder, if you're following me on this, like it's no wonder that it feels so hard sometimes. And the solution, the healing of the system is integration of our disowned parts, the other half of us that we're not allowed to have, and learning how to integrate that into who we be, into our wholeness, without losing the reality of our primary energy system of masculine or feminine or fluid or non-binary, because those exist too. When power gets shared and the fragments become integrated, when both people know how to do strength and softness, how to do independence and connection, when both people have a voice, have influence, without either one disappearing or having to minimize or shrink themselves, then we have relationships that can truly build something extraordinary. I can't wait to see how our world changes, how our lives change as we learn how to do this. So let's talk about integration for a bit. Integration doesn't just change how power flows between people, it changes what we are allowed to be within ourselves. Like I said, this is not just shifting how we interact in our relational dynamic, it's shifting what we allow ourselves to feel, to do, to think, who we allow ourselves to be. Right? If patriarchy split human qualities in half, integration brings our full humanity into truth, into embodiment, right? Integration heals the split that patriarchy creates. So for the feminine or for women or anybody embodying, the feminine end of the spectrum, this can look like reclaiming strength and independence and leadership without losing our femininity. In a healed and integrated paradigm, femininity doesn't need to shrink in order to be loved. It doesn't need to be accommodating and prioritize everybody else in order to be enough. Femininity can be fluid and formidable, my friends. It can be emotional and assertive, receptive of influence and leadership without having to disappear or silence herself. Assertive without being in complaining or passiveness, or one down positioning. Powerful without hardening or putting on armor. This kind of femininity expands life without containing it. It invites safety and growth and healing and connection while staying in power and expansion. It's beautiful. And on the other side, like an integrated masculinity looks like men reclaiming softness, emotional presence, attunement, intimacy, the ability to do real intimacy without losing their masculinity. Terry Real talks about, I talk a lot about Terry Real because I'm in one of his classes right now. And he, of any of the other mentors in my own life, speaks more about patriarchy and dismantling patriarchy. And so, I mean, there's a lot of resonance. But he talks about, in our class, actually this week, or last week, it doesn't matter, how intimacy is like the key to our happiness, that like nothing else satisfies the soul like experiencing relational joy, which comes from intimacy, connection, closeness. Patriarchy does not allow that. So, like, especially for the masculine. So for the masculine, learning how to engage in intimacy without losing that masculinity, it's game-changing, right? In a healed paradigm, masculinity can still be powerful without having to be dominating, can still lead without having to be in charge. Masculinity can be strong and attuned, right? Grounded, contained, and emotionally present. Protective without being controlling, right? Having that tenderness there. And decisive without disconnecting. That kind of masculinity creates safety, not fear. And if you ask, women who are dissatisfied in their relationship with men or with a masculine partner, what they desire most, I promise you it will come back down to safety. No matter how they started out, it like comes back with like feeling safe enough to share my feelings, to be real, feeling safe and knowing I can be met by you, that you will be there when I need you. This is how we get there. Polarity that is integrated is not sameness, right? Is not where the masculine and the feminine just are like integrated together and then we just have humans. No, I want to keep the polarity. I think the polarity is beautiful and important. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to lose my femininity when I'm in it, or my masculinity when I am fluidly moving into that embodiment. And I don't know that men want to lose their sense of masculinity either, or that women want that too. So that we're not about sameness, becoming copies of one another, or reversing roles, right? This is not about women becoming more masculine or men becoming more feminine. This is about healing, my friends. And I know that's nuanced, but I hope that you can get it. I know you can, because you're my audience, and my audience gets this shit. So this isn't like, so this polarity is a meeting of whole humans, right? Like that we are, like I am a whole feminine person, and I have not halved the parts of me that have masculine energy, or that are allowed to have power or strength or independence or leadership. And I can maintain my feminine, right? And the same for the masculine energy, right? Like he are still, she gets to still be in masculine energy, but and has not disowned, disallowed, disconnected from the parts that we typically label as feminine: softness, connection, right? So we get to meet each other as people, as masculine and feminine people, in our wholeness and our humanity. This is power with heart. This is strength with presence. This is difference from one another without the hierarchy. That is the healing of patriarchy. We do it not by flipping the script, but by evolving it. The beautiful polarity stays in my relationship revolution, and the one I think we need. But patriarchy, power imbalances, personal and relational fragmentation, that's what gets tossed. That's what starts to dissolve. I want to share a story from my own relationship. And take a drink of my kombucha. So I've lived this in my own relationship, this practicing of a shift. And I'm still, like I said, I'm still figuring it out. Cal and I are still figuring it out. And it's no small thing, okay? It takes a tremendous amount of unlearning and relearning, because when you really start to bring consciousness, remember the power formula I talked about last week? Awareness is choice is power. When you really start to bring awareness to how patriarchy shows up in our programming, in our relational patterns, in our personal identities, you find that it's pretty much everywhere, right? It is the water we are swimming in, and we are the fish. So when I first started learning about this, it was interesting because Cal, my partner, if you don't know, Cal is the co-founder of Powerful Love Relationships, my life partner and soulmate, one of the greatest teachers in my own life about what actually works in relationships. And he happens to be a man who was assigned female at birth. And so as such, and as someone who didn't transition into his true identity until several decades into his life, he prides himself on not being like most cisgender men, right? Of being a more evolved man, one who, unlike a lot of other cisgender masculine folks, can really get what it means to be a woman. And he does. And I love that about him. Yet, like as I was learning about, or we were learning about the way patriarchy plays out in our relationships, I still saw the way it was playing out in ours. And he didn't want to identify that with that. He had a lot of resistance, but it certainly didn't make him immune. There were still imbalances on, who took care of the emotional needs of our kids, of who led the relational change, of who did most of the emotional labor in our household, how each of us related to masculine and feminine qualities. And that's not just about Cal, right? Yes, he's been programming, he knows, like, even when he was uh, in being perceived by the world as female, he still very much knew what it meant to be a man, what was masculine, what was feminine. We all play this game, right? And so I do too, and I identify as gender queer, so but feminine leaning most of the time. But what that means for me is, like, I still engage with men from the position and expectations of cultural standards and scripts of what it means for me to be a woman and a feminine woman, and what I expect, or how I'm supposed to treat him and how I'm supposed to be treated by men or masculine person, including my relationship with Cal. Um, and what's interesting is when I have dated more feminine women and have then, in those relationships embodied more of the qualities, more of the masculine energy, right? Um, I played the role, and I knew who I was supposed to be and how I was supposed to act, supposed to, because of this having, right? And so these expectations I have of what it means to be a man are expectations that I have expected of Cal, that I've engaged with him in ways that position him to respond to the way a man should. Guys, I have been just as much a part of this dynamic continuing or playing out in my partnership with Calvin as he has. And it was all under our awareness until it wasn't. So the truth is, we have had to do a lot of self-examination, a lot of challenging of our deeply rooted beliefs and expectations, a lot of considering of what we wanted to keep and what we didn't. Um, and we're still figuring it out. But what I know that I know that I know, my friends, is that doing this work has been essential for us. The shifts that we have made since doing this integration while keeping polarity kind of movement in our own relational recovery and revolution has been game changing. Defensiveness has softened tremendously. There's been a huge shift in the energy between us, resulting in more balance, like not over functioning from me, or where, like, there's a lot more equity in how we show up in our family, in our partnership, in even our communication. There has been deeper healing, trauma release, and more real conversations, which has led to a greater sense of safety and partnership than I think we'd ever known before. And we thought we were good. And listen, this work has not been long coming, right? We're probably less than a year into really consciously bringing attention to this. But when you have the foundation that we have, which are all the other shifts that we've made and all of the frameworks and tools that we teach, this shift is a next level. It's a natural progression. It's not to say it hasn't been fucking hard sometimes, because it has, as growing often is. Yet when you understand this growth process, you understand while you're doing it, as annoying and inconvenient and painful and frustrating and shitty as it might feel while you're doing it, that it is ultimately leading to your highest good and spiritual growth, which is, if you'll recall from one of the previous episodes, 3, I think, what it really means to love. So this is what we're building, friends. This is what becomes possible when you make that shift from fragmentation into wholeness, into integrated polarity. Relationships where no one has to shrink to stay connected, where leadership invites closeness, strength feels safe, love becomes a place of restoration and rest, and not survival or self protection. This is the future of love when patriarchy no longer runs rampant in our relationships. It is the future of how we do relationships, period, on the other side of the relationship revolution. And we can't just stop at theory if we're going to get there. To create this kind of shift in our lives, in the world, we need to take these ideas and move them into embodied practice, right? Into who we be and how we relate. This is identity work. This is relational work. This is healing work. This is brain rewiring work. And it's necessary. And that movement from concept into practice, that is what we do inside the Relationship Revolution community. This community is a devotion to that embodied practice of what it means to lead, love, and relate differently, week by week, in real life, with support and accountability. So if you know that you're the kind of person who wants this for their own life, if you want to grow yourself as a relational leader, if you want to unlock the potential of love in your own partnerships and learn how to do relationships differently, better, with integrated power, conscious love, then I invite you lovingly, warmly to join us in the Relationship Revolution community. We do weekly integration practices. We've got accountability, live coaching, support for how you're applying these practices into your own relationships, behind the scenes looks at how Cal and I are walking our talk, and bonus tools, resources, trainings, and even more to come. The Relationship Revolution community is just $147 a month, and you can cancel anytime. So if it is not providing the value and the support and the transformation you're looking for, no worries. It's about what you might spend on a fancy dinner once a month, right? But if you know that you want to transform your relationship, that you are committed to your own revolution in love, come join us. If where you're at right now, however, is a space where you desire deeper, faster, like more intense transformation, then I want to invite you to join me for my new Be the One Relational Leadership Initiation. This is a 6-week initiation for women who are done waiting, done shrinking, done carrying the relationship alone. It's for women who don't want to leave the relationship, but know that they cannot stay if something doesn't change. And they are willing to be the one to start those changes, even if their partner's not on board in doing the work with them. But they're going to do it without forcing, without fixing, without abandoning herself, without banging her head against the wall and expending so much wasted energy on things that don't work. Okay. The Be the One relationship initiation, relational leadership initiation, is about learning how to lead your relationship with clarity, strength, and self-trust so the dynamic can actually shift. And partners, spouses are welcome, absolutely welcome to join in this work, but they are not required. If it is just you who is ready and willing to do something to help things change, come be in this initiation, because truly it only takes one to change. And as you change your steps in the dance, if your partner's dancing with you, their steps will change. So this is a program for real movement. This is an initiation that will take you into a new way of leading your relationship and creating change without losing or giving up yourself. In fact, it invites a reclaiming of yourself, which I think a lot of us need. We start that program on February 9th. The full investment for this intensive initiation, this initiation is $2,000. And for those who are ready to commit early, there is an early enrollment rate of $1,500 that is available through the end of January. So you have until midnight on the 31st to get in for $1,500 instead of $2,000. I don't mean that as pressure. I want it to honor readiness, because those who are ready and those who move and just know, they get the results. So if you're feeling it, if you're feeling called, I trust that you know, and I trust you to move. That's it for me today. I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for being here. Please join me next week, which is next month, for another theme. I don't actually know what I'm doing for February yet. I'm playing with a couple ideas, but I'll let you know. But I'm here every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, for these Catalyst Conversations in a Relationship Revolution. Join me live or on a replay. Until then, keep leading with love, my friends.